Hello, perhaps you've heard that the United States is now exporting a lot of natural gas in the form of LNG. This presentation is intended to give you some basic information about LNG. So first, the topics that we're going to cover: what is LNG, why is the gas liquefied, and how is it transported? So first, what is LNG? It's liquefied natural gas. Gas that is normally in a gaseous form is transformed into a liquid. How is that done? The gas is cooled to a temperature of minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit, where it condenses, changes states from gas into a liquid. Now, why is it liquefied? You would think, well, if you're going to export natural gas, you could just pipe it into a ship, into the cargo hold, and send it on its way. Well, it's all about energy density. It's how many BTUs you can pack into a given space. Natural gas at atmospheric pressure in a cubic foot contains about 1,000 BTUs per cubic foot. When liquefied, that gas takes up only 1/600th of that space. So think of it like taking a beach ball and taking the amount of BTUs in a beach ball and condensing it down to, say, a ping pong ball. That's essentially what you're doing when you liquefy the gas. So now the gas that formerly took up 1,000 BTUs per cubic foot, it can contain 600,000 BTUs in a cubic foot. Or to put it in a gallon equivalency, it's about 80,200 BTUs per gallon. And for comparison, liquid propane has a BTU content of about 91,000 BTUs per gallon. So it's somewhat similar in terms of energy density to liquefied propane. And the LNG exports, when did they start? Well, they started back in February of 2016. As of mid-2019 this year, we're approaching 6 billion cubic feet per day that we're exporting of natural gas. And to give you some perspective, the production of natural gas in the United States on a daily basis averages about 90 billion cubic feet. So we're exporting about 6 out of 90, so that's about 7%. And that rate is expected to increase to perhaps over 10 BCF per day in the next couple of years. There are currently 6 LNG plants operating in the United States, most of them along the Gulf Coast, with one up in Maryland. And what's the typical production cycle of LNG? Well, think of on the left, we have the United States, and on the right, we have the places where the LNG is going. Might be Europe, Mexico, South Korea. And so on the left, we have the pipelines that are bringing the natural gas into the LNG plant. They liquefy it by, again, condensing it down to minus 260 degrees below zero. And then it's put onto the ships. The ships go across the ocean, and on the other side, there's a receiving terminal. The LNG is pumped into holding tanks, and then it's regasified, put into the pipeline, and it goes on its way. What's a typical facility look like? Well, this was the first LNG export facility called Sabine Pass down on the Louisiana-Texas border. And to give you some sense of scale, from left to right here, that's about a mile. So this facility is about 1 square mile. And these are on the order of $15 billion for this type of facility. This facility is operating at about 2/3 of its capacity right now. To give you another sense of scale, that ship there on the top part of the screen is about 1,000, 1,200 foot long. So they're big, large, expensive facilities, big capital investment. The ships themselves, there's a couple examples of LNG ships. These are ships that are on the order of $150 million each. They hold anywhere from 2.5 to 5 billion cubic feet. They're about up to 1,200 feet long, 160 feet wide. To give you a sense of that 2.5 BCF, a typical hospital might use on the order of 50,000 decatherms per year. That's about 0.05 BCF. So a 2.5 BCF cargo ship of LNG would supply a hospital for about 50 years. On the other hand, we have a lot of LNG, or a lot of ethanol plants across the Midwest that we serve, and it's not uncommon for an ethanol plant to use about 2.5 BCF a year. So one of these ships could feed that ethanol plant for a year. Where's this LNG going? Well, the top 3 countries for importing LNG are South Korea, Japan, and China. This is showing where the LNG exports went from the United States the first part of 2018, South Korea, Mexico, Japan, and China, and then a lot of other countries in Europe and Asia. Who are the top exporting countries of LNG? The United States is just getting into this, and we're up to, like I said, nearly 6 BCF a day that we're exporting. The United States is the dark blue line. You can see that we're getting up towards 6. The top country for exporting LNG has always been the country of Qatar, that small country surrounded by Saudi Arabia on the western coast of the Persian Gulf. They've always been the top exporter of LNG. Australia, you can see in the red line, they're rising fast, and basically they're neck and neck with Qatar. And Australia continues to increase their LNG export capacity. So for all practical purposes, right now, Australia's number 1, Qatar's number 2, the United States is 3rd and moving up. So with that, that's some basic information about LNG. And as you can imagine, LNG is becoming a major factor in the overall supply and demand picture in the United States natural gas marketplace. Hopefully this gives you some useful insight about LNG. And if you have any questions, certainly call Encore Energy. Thanks and have a great day.